Hey everybody. This video is going to be quick, I hope, and about social dilemmas. So social dilemmas involve situations in which selfish behavior, behavior that benefits the individual, if pursued by everyone within a group, hurts the group. So, for example, the public goods social dilemma involves a resource that everybody contributes to and that everybody can pull from. Now, the advantage for sorry, having to close the door. The advantage for the individual is to take as much out of the pool as possible and to put as little into the pool as possible. All right. Well, if that were to happen, so let's just say that the best strategy for each individual is to put in as little. All right. Well, if everybody does that, then there's not much in the common goods pool. And so that common goods pool that would be used to benefit the group doesn't have much to benefit the group for. So because if each individual puts in the minimum amount, which again is the best strategy for the individual, then the group suffers. So a good example of this public goods dilemma is taxes. All right. So nobody likes to put in taxes. Everybody hates taxes. So they all want to put in as little as possible or none if they possibly could. Well, taxes are used to pay for social good, public good programs. So like bridges and roads and Medicare, public good programs, certain social welfare programs that can help people who may be, disabled. So these social welfare programs, schools, roads, I didn't mention schools before, schools, public schools, public universities, all of these are public goods that are funded by everyone contributing to a public pool of resources. Well, again, if every individual adopts the strategy of I want to contribute none or as little as I can, then that common, but everybody wants to pull out of it. Everybody wants a good school, everybody wants good roads, everybody wants good bridges, but everybody's contributing less and less and less and less to the common good. Then there's less and less and less capable with which to perform those common goods. So bridges, roads, schools all suffer. All right. So that's the public goods dilemma. Another social dilemma that's often studied is the prisoner's dilemma. So the prisoner dilemma involves two individuals. Now, both have two options. Let's assume that they both committed a crime. Well, they have two options. Because they're being interrogated individually, they can either confess or keep their mouth shut. All right. Well, if they keep their mouth shut and the other person also keeps their mouth shut, then they both win. But if both of them confess, then they lose. But if one of them confesses, okay, and the other one keeps their mouth shut, the one who confesses gets a bigger benefit, and the person who kept their mouth shut, who cooperated, gets the biggest punishment. So we can think of this in terms of cooperation and competitiveness in the same way that we, cooperation looking out for the good of the group, or competition looking out for the good of the individual. So if I confess, then that's the best move for me individually, because if the other person confesses too, we're both going to go to jail. So neither of us really gets a benefit. But if I confess and the other person decides to tries to cooperate, boy, do I get a benefit, and the other one gets screwed over. And if I were to try to cooperate and the other person didn't, now I'm really getting screwed over. So the best individual tactic is to confess. Okay. Now, to make it a little bit more understandable or a little bit more clearer, what often is done is people perform the prisoner dilemma over multiple tasks, or over multiple trials rather, and they are assigned points for different decisions. So if they confess, sorry, if they keep their mouth shut and their partner keeps their mouth shut, then they both get 3 points. If they confess and their partner confesses, they both lose 1 point. All right. But if they confess and their partner keeps their mouth shut, then the confessor gets 6 points, and the person who kept their mouth shut loses 6 points. So in the short term, over one trial, maybe two, the best strategy is to confess, because if the other one confesses too, then you only lose 1 point. But if you confess and the other doesn't, you gain 6 points. That's a huge advantage, but again, for the individual. Now, if you continue to do this, so let's say you confess and you get 6 points. Well, the other person's likely going to retaliate on the next trial, so they're going to confess as well. So now you're not gaining anything. You're losing 1. So you gained 6 in the first trial. Second trial, you both confess, you both lose 1. Next trial, you both confess, you lose 1. Next trial, confess, you both lose 1, etc., etc., etc. So over the long haul, confessing, which would be the best individual tactic, is the worst tactic. But over the long haul, if you both keep your mouth shut, if you both play along or cooperate, then you both gain 3 points over each trial. So let's say we look at 7 trials, or let's just say 6 trials, okay? On the first one, you confess, the other person keeps their mouth shut. You gain 6 points, they lose 6 points. Trial 2, you both confess again. He's retaliating. Well, now you've lost 1, so you're down to 5, and they've lost 1, they're down to 7. Okay? That is repeated on the third trial, so you're down to 4, they're down to 8. On the fourth trial, you're down to 3, they're up to 9, they're down 9. On the fourth trial, etc., etc. So at the end of 6 trials, you may have 1 point left, and they may have 11 points. May have a negative 11 points. So the worst tactic for both individuals is to do the thing that helps the individual. Well, if you were both to cooperate, all right, so both of you kept your mouth shut over the same 6 trials, then you would both have 18 points. So in the condition where you confessed every time, and they confessed on every time after the first one, you have 1 point. They have negative 11. In the situation where you both cooperated on all 6 trials, you both have 18 points. So the prisoner's dilemma is often used to measure cooperation. And so when we prime people with cues of cooperation, lo and behold, we find that they are more likely to cooperate. When we make people think about, or when people are threatened, all right, and they've adopted a fast life strategy, so they perceive their environment as being harsh, and they become more risky, they are more likely to compete and less likely to be cooperative, which makes sense because, again, in the short term, they take the more beneficial strategy, which in the short term, competing is the best. So confessing in the short term is the best tactic. In the long term, however, cooperating is the best tactic. And in fact, even when you have people, so there's a competition, or at least there used to be, where programmers would come up with different strategies for scoring points using that scheme that I mentioned earlier in the prisoner's dilemma. And the best tactic, or one of the best tactics, has been, they call it tit for two tats. So all you 12-year-old boys who giggled at the fact that I just said tit, get over it. So for when, basically, if they confess, you confess. But if they cooperate, then, and they cooperate twice, then you start cooperating. So the idea is that you match them, you continue to match them until they switch, and they switch twice. Okay? Switch twice, that's confusing. So you match their behavior on each trial. When they switch tactic, you continue what you've been doing for one more trial. If they persist in that alternative tactic, then you switch to match them. All right, and that tends to be, over the long haul, the best tactic. All right. All right. Leave. Yeah. That's one of the best tactics. The other tactic is just the tit-for-tat tactic, which is to begin cooperatively and then on successive trials match whatever the other person does. So if they cooperate, you cooperate. If they confess, you confess. So those are two tactics, tit-for-tat and tit-for-two-tats, that have been some of the more successful strategies for playing this over the long haul. But again, these dilemmas, these social dilemmas, illustrate the importance, or at least the value, of cooperating over the long haul. Certainly in the short term, selfish behavior, or behavior focused on advantaging the individual, has its advantages, at the sake of being redundant. But over the long haul, cooperation tends to be on average, a better tactic. All right, guys, that's all I had for. I'm blanking. It's the end of the day. I'm tired. For social dilemmas. If you have any questions, be sure to send them my way. But that's all I got. So, see you later.